2016, 80% of evangelical voters cast a ballot for Donald Trump. And despite the more lurid events of his first term, President Trump still enjoys a 72% approval rating amongst evangelicals.
I dominated with the evangelicals. A lot of people were surprised.
But that support is sagging, if only slightly. Rob Schenck has been one of the country's most effective and notorious political evangelicals. A fire-breathing anti-abortion activist, Schenck fought alongside infamous Alabama Judge Roy Moore, blocked access to abortion clinics, and, with an office on Capitol Hill, spent decades lobbying Republican senators and presidents. But Schenck recently shocked his former comrades by softening his strident message and excoriating them for making what he sees as a Faustian bargain with Donald Trump. And he's urging evangelicals to not only abandon the president, but to embrace his Catholic pro-choice opponent. You're partially to blame. Were you part of a movement that set, way of speaking that became standard with Republicans?
I certainly fostered the culture that we now see embracing Donald Trump and championing Donald Trump sycophantically. I used fear-mongering. I preached hundreds of sermons in which I painted Democrats, whom I at times referred to as Democrats. I sat in many strategy meetings, particularly with fundraisers, who would say, "Give me more fear and more anger. We should have never done it. It should have never happened. That is the politicization of American evangelicalism. We should have never gotten in bed with the Republican Party." The history of politicizing religion is from bad to absolutely disastrous. And we are living through it now. In fact, I do wonder sometimes if American evangelicalism will survive this.
I mean, this is something you dedicated your life to, and you are questioning right now whether that thing survives. And, sorry to be so blunt about it, but what was it all for?
We've got a few federal judges. We've got public rhetoric that goes something like, now you can say Merry Christmas again, and no one will scowl at you. Now, some will say to me, no, but you don't understand, with the policies that are in place, eventually we will have fewer abortions while we have children dying in cages on the southern border. How many 14-year-olds and 9-year-olds will you trade for some newborns? That's untenable. Absolutely untenable.
Was that the moment with Donald Trump where you said, this has gone too far?
For me, it unfolded over, at least a few years. I had to walk away from the organization I spent 30 years building from scratch. As soon as I came out against Donald Trump, I was no longer invited to a pulpit, and that was my main source of recruiting financial donors for the organization. Money is used to control our voices. I can't tell you how many major donors sat down with me and said, "You go against Donald Trump, I'm withdrawing all my financial support."
This happened to you?
This happened to me.
But you went against Donald Trump?
I did. I think my colleagues would like to say some of the things that I'm saying now about Donald Trump, but they can't risk $100 million a year budget.
But they risk something else.
They certainly risk their integrity, their inner peace, and very often their families. Very often. And that's tragic. So there's a lot placed at the altar of Donald Trump. We just heard the Republican National Convention said we don't have policies anymore. We have no platform. It's whatever Donald Trump feels like doing today, this afternoon, tonight, tomorrow, Friday. It's all him. That's exceedingly dangerous. To me, that's the definition of a cult. What you have in the Republican Party now is a religious cult. If you look at the Democratic Party, its policies are far more consistent with what I call Sermon on the Mount and Matthew 25 priorities.
Because you're I mean, to be clear about this, you're very much in the minority.
We're always going to be in the minority, but minorities can do very important things in a democracy. It just takes a small number of evangelicals to make a very big change in this election. We need to vote what is right and good regardless of party label. We need to do the most amount of good for the most amount of people in the most amount of ways for the most amount of time. That's why, for the first time in 44 years, I will vote for a Democrat for president.